Hello, Internet! Gino, that Pinguino Greco, here again with another episode of Deep Listens, and today we go balls deep into the NBA semifinals, which means I am joined, as always, by Professor Basketball himself, Pete Busby.
What's going on, everybody? I'm excited to talk hoops yet again, despite this being a very sad day in Philadelphia. But this week's fun fact, short one, quick one, good one. Do you know that Kleenex tissue was originally developed to be a filter in gas masks during World War I? But World War I ended, so they pivoted, and they turned it into facial tissue.
That's a good pivot.
Yeah, strong pivot.
That's a very solid pivot. And because it is an NBA podcast, I have to be joined by someone...
Have to be joined.
We are contractually obligated to be joined by
restricted free agent.
Chris ZombiePie Redacted.
You got to meet me halfway at least. Match my money.
Yes. Otherwise, we lose you for no value.
Show me potato salad.
Show me. That is probably the only line I've ever quoted from Family Guy in real life.
That's a good... that means you're living a clean life. Well... Before we get started talking about the NBA, we got an email that I feel is appropriate. Pete, did you listen to our last episode?
Did I listen to? I was in our last episode. Oh, no, I wasn't. You're right. No, I did not.
Well, you were in that episode.
I was. I contributed to it.
No, you were in it.
I was in it. Got it.
So Grandin writes in and says, "Hey, guys." And remember, you can write in and sound like Grandin by using @DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens.lupus.com. We've got our comment sections and deeplistenspodcast @gmail.com. And you could sound like Grandin here, who says, Gino, your Pete impersonation is pretty good, but if you really want to take it to the next level, try inhaling some sulfur hexafluoride. It's a gas that's 6 times heavier than air, so breathing it can cause some pretty dramatic vocal changes. YouTube has plenty of examples. UM and ZP should get some and see who gets the closest to Pete's voice. Pete, don't do this. Ultra-low-frequency sound waves are bad for listeners.
My voice just turns into a deadly weapon all of a sudden.
This was the
like
subject
Doom.
line of the email. For a good time, breathe chemicals.
Excellent get.
I was just, out on the town. I think I was about to go to a movie, and then I got this email, and I was like, for a good time, breathe chemicals. Well, shit. I'm signed up to the right mailing list. We have great listeners. Thank you. But yeah.
I think this is how we get access to the weirding module from the Dune movie. About 2 of our listeners got that reference.
Yeah, but they loved it.
Is the Dune movie the best movie The Rock's ever made?
Did you say Doom or Dune?
Dune.
Oh, excuse me.
The one with Sting in a bikini.
Good book, though.
Very good book.
Okay,
followed by a bunch of not-so-great sequels.
I would say that the Doom movie is not the best movie The Rock has ever made. That's The Rundown.
Ooh, another excellent Rock movie, yes.
I don't know.
Also, best movie Christopher Walken's ever made.
He's in that?
Yeah, he's the, evil dude.
Right. All right, he is.
You're right. I forgot about this movie.
And wasn't the sidekick Stifler?
Yeah, Sean
Right,
something or other, right?
right.
Yeah, whatever his name was. That was at the height of his powers, back when he got to be in movies that weren't American Pie movies.
He was good in Goon, too.
Yeah. I mean, he had a moment. There was an era. It was from roughly 1999 till 2006, I feel like, when he was in movies on purpose. And now he's in movies on accident.
Mm-hmm.
So, now that we've discussed The Rock's cinematography and cinematic profile, let's get to the NBA, because we've made some predictions, and it's now the semifinals. So let's just remember, I picked the Blazers to win. I don't think I picked the right number of games, but I was right on that one. I picked the Bucks. I picked the Raptors, and I was wrong about the Houston Rockets beating the Warriors. That was my shot in the dark. Didn't pan out. ZP, how'd you do?
I did poorly.
How poorly?
I did poorly. I predicted over in the East that the Celtics would find a way to untap their potential, but then, that went to shit because, Kyrie decided to go Afro Kyrie, and we all know Afro Kyrie is trash. So they lost in 5, so that's a big L on my side.
Is Afro Kyrie a term that I am not familiar with?
Kyrie with an afro is bad. That's the Twitter joke. As you
okay.
know, I follow basketball Twitter for just a good laugh from time to time, but I did correctly predict that the Raptors would win. I believe we all predicted Raptors in 6, though.
Yeah,
I know that,
in 7.
But we'll talk more about that later. I predicted the Warriors would beat the Rockets, and then I missed ever so slightly in predicting the Denver Nuggets would beat Portland. So that's 2 out of 4 for me.
Pete, how'd you do?
I think I did overall pretty well, but my picks were pretty chalk. I mean, I picked the Warriors. I did pick the Nuggets, which was a bad look. Didn't pick the Sixers because I've never trusted them. And I assumed the Celtics would lose, I'm pretty sure, because I hate the Celtics, and I'm glad they lost.
Okay, so we all missed at least one.
Yes.
But the last set of series, I feel like 3 of them were razor thin. Even though the Warriors won in 6 games, there were a couple of close calls in both directions. In games 1 and 2 for the Warriors winning. The Rockets wins in 3 and 4 were both razor thin. Game 5 was kind of in doubt for a while, and then the Warriors were able to close it out in 6, even though they lost KD in Game 5.
Mm-hmm. Do we have an updated prognosis for him?
KD will not be open until the finals, but Boogie says he will be ready for the Western Conference Finals.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and man, he tore his entire quad, right? Part of his muscle was up in there.
It was his
calf, yeah.
No. KD hurt his calf.
Oh, you're talking
Boogie
about
hurt
Boogie.
his quad.
Boogie. Yeah, I don't think Boogie's actually going to be ready. That's not an injury that traditionally you recover from early. But then again, I mean, Boogie basically played this season with one leg. What's to say he can't do it again?
Yeah.
However, I think the interesting thing there is Boogie getting injured. I'm not going to say it's 100%. I'm not even going to. I think it's even maybe below 50%, but it certainly increased the odds of him coming back to the Warriors next season.
Yeah, definitely.
It's no longer 0 because he will he basically gambled on himself that he could play an entire season healthy or the better part of a season in a postseason healthy. He lost, and now the number of teams that are willing to roll the dice on him after a second injury, I think, has exponentially decreased.
So suppose you had to bet who's more likely to return, Boogie or KD next season. Has it shifted to Boogie?
It was always Boogie for me.
Okay. Well, is that a partisan take, Gino?
No, I think that KD has had one foot out the door for most of the season, and I think that you can't afford to sign Steph, KD, Clay, and Draymond once Clay and Draymond's contracts are up, which I think they are this season. And I think, as we saw kind of in Game 6 against the Rockets, KD's a luxury item. They don't actually need him to do what they do. And in some ways, they play better without him.
That's what I was about to say is I think this series against Houston has abated the appetite to do everything to keep KD. Because, I mean, there were multiple interviews in which the owner of the Warriors said, we're going to do whatever we can to keep KD on this team. We're going to spend the money. We're going to go over the cap. We're going to pay the tax. I think the appetite to do that now has decreased. Yeah. Because they've proven they can still win. And I don't know, man. I'm just going to go ahead and come out and say it. This second round was disappointing.
What? This second round was awesome.
I thought it was great. I thought it was great basketball, but
yeah.
I'm not. When I say disappointing, when I see disappointing, I don't mean that like it was bad basketball. I'm saying I wanted the Warriors to lose. I wanted the 76ers to win, and I wanted Jokic to get to the Western Conference Finals.
Mm-hmm.
It was like,
I mean, there were a lot of interesting teams, though.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not upset. Like, I like Portland. I just would have liked to see the Nuggets go further.
Yeah, I just think that at the end of the day here, whichever team made it between the Nuggets and Portland are probably either getting swept by the Warriors or going to lose in 5. They might get to 6 because the Warriors have been kind of dicking around occasionally, and so they might get to 6.
I think the odds of them trying to they're going to play at a faster speed with KD out. The Warriors are going to play that fastball offense, and to be honest, I thought that Denver had a better chance to pick off a game or two than Portland because
they're really wounded.
They're wounded. They literally don't have a big man.
Aren't they just they're just the worst Warriors? Like they're generic brand Warriors, really.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily go that far, just because I think that CJ is dynamic in a way that Clay isn't. He's not really a ball hand. Like Clay's an excellent outside shooter, great defender, but he's not actually a great ball handler, and he's not really a playmaker. The Trailblazers kind of have 2 point guards that both can get their own shot whenever they want against almost anyone. Dame is the closest thing to Steph outside of Steph, and CJ is kind of a completely different person. Now, the problem is, outside of those two, I think that everyone else is kind of defense only or really flawed, like Cantor. So I think that
Cantor's playing hurt. I mean,
he's hurt.
I will say one of the funniest things I've seen is when, like, early in the series, Cantor would like dunk the ball and then immediately grab his shoulder and say, I need to not do that again.
Yeah, he re-separated his shoulder by dunking. But they've got some things going on that the Warriors don't. So they've got enough of a difference in style where I don't think they're just, the CVS store brand.
Okay. I'll give you that one. I mean, McCollum is definitely more dynamic.
Yeah, but
they're worse.
Gino,
they're going to get clobbered.
Yes.
Who do you think had a better chance of stealing a game, Denver or Portland?
Well,
this version of Portland that is hurt, or a healthy Denver.
Can I say it's a trick question because neither of them will? Or they have equal odds because it's really predicated on whether the Warriors kind of screw around for one game? Because, like everything that CJ and Dame did to Jokic, the Warriors would do it 10 times worse.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't even necessarily torture Jokic that much, but you can get a shot off on him wherever you want, whenever you want, as long as you involve him in a pick and roll. Whereas I think Portland just doesn't have the defenders necessary. As long as Cantor's going to need to play, they're going to be in a really bad shape for this. And Dame and CJ, as good as they are on offense, they are real liabilities on defense. And the Warriors just don't have a glaring hole like that. So I think that they probably get it done in like 4 or 5, but I think they would have gotten it done against Denver too. It's a shame that neither, they couldn't both advance between Denver and Portland. They're both great teams.
Combine the teams and like that super team plays the Warriors.
That would have been interesting. If you combine the best players from Denver and the best players from Portland, do you think they could give the Warriors a run?
Oh, sure.
Sure.
You don't think so?
It just comes down to now you've taken you've basically taken the two teams that cannot guard against a pick and roll and combined them. And so I think it's just you're making their biggest problem now 10 times worse by putting these characters together.
So if you did that, the starting center would be Jokic. I think Dame is the starting point guard. I think CJ is the shooting guard. Then Millsap at power forward. And then who's your wing? Who's your fourth wing? Gary Harris? Probably? Or Jamal Murray?
Jamal Murray, I would probably go with.
Yeah, but if you go with Murray, then you've got a backcourt of Murray, Lillard, and McCollum.
Yeah, you're giving up 130 points a game, but you'll probably score 150.
So wait, are we talking about power forward?
No, we're talking about who would take the third wing slot, small forward / guard. Yeah, that would be a heck of a team.
Evan Turner?
No, he's not going to start.
No.
He would come off the bench. I think he'd make the bench squad on that combined team. But, boy, there's not enough ball, I don't think, for all those guys.
No.
Because I think you'd need to run the offense through Jokic. But then Dame and CJ's creation abilities are mitigated a little bit. That would be an interesting thought experiment.
All right, let's run down these series.
Yes. But before we do that, can we just, Pete, your beloved 76ers?
I'm going to make some claims here. Heartbreaking loss. Tough moment for the city. I think this is the furthest the process Sixers ever get.
What do you mean by that? Like, this is like they are forever stuck in the second round? Like, they will never get to the Eastern Conference Finals?
Yes. I think this is the best the team will ever be as a direct result of the process. Maybe down the line they retool, but that will be predicated on new assets.
I disagree.
I'm kind of stuck in the middle. So, Gino, you go first.
I disagree because this team, when Joel Embiid was on the court, I believe they were in the like plus 90 range, and then when he was off the court, they were like minus 110 or something.
Yeah, so I do know in the final game, in the 45 minutes he played, they were plus 12. And
they were plus 10, and then the 3 minutes he was off, they were minus 12.
Right, correct. Correct.
3 minutes he was off the court were bad enough to cost them the game.
Yes.
And Joel Embiid, as long as he stays healthy, is such a gigantic difference maker and such a problem that no one else seems to have an answer to, in the East at least, that if anything happens with Kawhi leaving, I think they'll be in the Eastern Conference Finals because I think they have more talent than the Celtics do.
Okay. All right.
All I will say is I actually liked what the 76ers did last time or last season, which is roll the dice on the restricted free agents because do you know what this team needed right about now? Dario Saric and Robert Covington. And it's crazy that I'm saying this right now.
Yeah, Rocco really would have helped.
Yeah,
they needed bench guys.
Having two bench guys, because let's be honest, like I think the starting roster for the 76ers is fine, but their bench is atrocious. They have their bench is bad, just bad. Didn't help that they went out of their way to get Jimmy Butler, and so they gave up some of those bench players for him, which we'll talk about later because the odds of him leaving are pretty high. Super high. But I just feel like this team. I mean, we'll get into it later, but I mean, it's such a hodgepodge of good ideas, poor execution. Because I don't know. Like, this bench looks bad. They literally, if Joel is sick, they have no center because you can't put Boban in there because he's just a
how dare
defensive. You? He's just this defensive liability, and then you got JJ Redick starting as a shooting guard, and he plays good, but he has his own limitations. Like, they cannot guard in the perimeter, and like because they doubled down on their investment on Jimmy Butler before the All-Star break, they couldn't do what they did last year, which is get two guys that can just fill these stopgaps so as that they could get a little bit further into the postseason.
So if you had to pick between keeping Butler or Harris, who would you actually want?
How old's Harris?
I believe he's 26.
And are we assuming they're both getting max deals this summer?
Yeah, or near it.
Yes.
I'd probably take Harris.
Then who's shooting on your team?
Harris.
We're going to revolutionize the game. No more shooting.
Light years, baby.
Yeah, we're so far ahead. We've circled back around.
Yeah, so Jimmy Butler's 29, and
he's the worst. He's just awful.
Are you kidding? He saved the game.
No, not as a player.
Okay, I got you. I keep forgetting that when you say that he's annoying, which is true because like what he did to the T-Wolves and Cat this year was just the cheesiest stuff all year long.
It was awful.
It was awful.
It's not great. However, I will say Jimmy Butler as a ball handler and a guy who can just create on his own, he adds a dimension to the 76ers that Harris doesn't. Harris
True.
is kind of a spot-up guy, catch-and-go kind of guy. He needs someone to make for him. And as long as you're going to have Ben Simmons involved with your team, you're going to have these awkward moments where he's the lead ball handler and everyone plays 10 feet off of him, and then he can't necessarily create for other people as well as he could if he could just shoot even a little bit. And so you're going to have moments where you just need to put the ball in Jimmy's hands or someone's hands to just go get a bucket, because entering the ball to Embiid's hard every single play. And I don't think Harris can do that for you, and I think Jimmy can. And that makes him kind of unique in their scheme. Harris, for this team, is kind of like he's an improved, like, Wilson Chandler.
Then this team needs to start running pick and rolls more often. If you're going to keep Jimmy Butler, like, Brett Brown needs to get his shit together and actually change the way he coaches and runs this offense.
Yeah, well, that's almost certainly going to need to happen one way or another. Though they were within one crazy shot from making it past the Raptors, who I thought were just superior.
I do not trust the 76ers in overtime if that shot didn't go down.
I don't trust either team in overtime. I think it would have been a crapshoot either way.
I would trust Kawhi to make it over the entirety of the 76ers.
That's fair. That's a fair stance. So, looking at the team that survived, Raptors, Bucks. What do we think?
I would take the Bucks. I mean, they were the best regular season team. They have home field advantage. I don't think Marc Gasol is going to be able to guard Giannis. I mean, I don't think Kawhi can either.
I usually put Siakam on him.
I was going to say Siakam probably could at least do a credible job. But especially based on, like, the offense I saw out of the Raptors in this series, it's not looking great.
Yeah, that's pretty much my stance as well. The Bucks are just too deep. They're too talented. They don't have any players who are gun shy in the way that the Raptors do. Like, I don't think that Marc Gasol or Kyle Lowry will take all of the open shots they get. And if they're not going to do that, then you can just comfortably guard Marc Gasol with Brook Lopez and he won't pay for it. And if you're going to be able to do that, then you're going to have real problems scoring on the Bucks. I don't think there's going to be a lot of Kawhi on Giannis and vice versa, because both of those guys are going to want to stay fresh, and Giannis is so devastating as a help defender. But it'll be interesting to see what happens when those guys do guard each other, because Kawhi's he's a next-level defender. He's just so good, and Giannis's handle is tight, but I don't know if it's tight enough to dribble around Kawhi Leonard for prolonged periods of time. And Kawhi doing his ISO nonsense, I don't know if it works on someone who's 3 inches taller than you and as athletic as Giannis is.
But he's got those hands.
He does, but their hands are probably about equivalent in size.
I'm glad you mentioned it, because one of the most frustrating things about the Raptors versus the 76ers in Game 7 was how no one on Toronto would take their first shot. Like, even when it was uncontested, players like Pascal and Lowry would pass the ball to Kawhi instead of taking open shots, and that was just so frustrating. I mean, it's hard to gauge the Raptors because they shot so poorly in Game 7. Like, across the board, that Game 7 against the 76ers was just a shit show in terms of offense. Like, it was like, what was it, 68 points going into the third quarter or something like that? It was a ridiculously low. Like, the Raptors are one of the hardest, and Kawhi in general is one of the hardest players to gauge and grade, because he just goes to sleep and then he does things like he did against the 76ers. And I just don't think, I think I'm with both of you, I don't think Kawhi has enough support. He just doesn't. Like, I like Pascal Siakam, I like Kyle Lowry, but they have been, as Gino said, so gun-shy about taking their first shot and not passing the ball around or dribbling. And while I think that Kawhi is a defensive powerhouse, I think he's going to have a lot of difficulty working with some of the players on the Bucks who are faster and willing to pass the ball a lot more than what he's more accustomed to, because he's not going to get these easy turnovers like he got on Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. He's not going to get those turnovers.
Probably not. The Bucks are pretty deep with competent players, and for a while I would have said that their benches are pretty equivalent between the Bucks and the Raptors, but that has not been the case this postseason. Like Pat Connaughton and George Hill, and I mean Malcolm Brogdon might be coming off the bench. Like the Bucks legitimately could say they go like 9 deep with competent NBA players, and they're going to get rest. They're going to be much more rested than this Toronto team.
The one thing I do want to say, though, I know this is going to get some groans and some people are going to push back, but I really don't feel like the Bucks have been tested this postseason so far.
Yeah, it's tough to be tested when you're that much better than everyone you're playing.
No, I mean, their first matchup was against Detroit, and as I said before, and I'll say it again, Blake with one leg was the second best player on that team, but he was the only person on his team that was giving out a top 5 performance. It was just bad. And then the Celtics were a shit show. They are probably, I mean, we can maybe talk about it later, but the Celtics this year, probably one of the all-time most disappointing teams in a good long time.
But I would say that the Celtics, people were giving them credit for potentially taking the Bucks because for some reason we keep having this conversation about whether Giannis is just going to be unmasked by a team because he can't shoot that well. But at a certain point, after 82 games of him just dunking all over everyone and playing against legitimate defenses, at a certain point, he's unguardable. It's not a gimmick anymore.
Even Shaq got bodied by Ben Wallace, so it's possible.
Then who's the Ben Wallace? Who's this guy? I mean, you could say maybe Kawhi.
We're going to find out. That it will eventually be found out.
Yeah, but he starts at the 3-point line and he's 7 feet tall. Like it's not like you have to enter the ball into him. It's like the Bucks, I would say, are like the Orlando Magic with Dwight Howard, except Dwight is bringing the ball up. Right? Like he doesn't need a pass. He's getting the dunks by himself. He doesn't need to set a screen for someone. I've never seen anything like it.
I'm with you in heart. I don't know how long that's going to last. I mean, I think they can definitely beat Toronto, but do you actually think that's going to be enough to beat the Warriors?
I mean, I think that they've given the Warriors a lot of trouble because they've got size and length across every position and shooting that is close to what the Warriors have to offer.
If you had to think about who could guard Giannis, though, like KD's a pretty solid contender. I mean, he's basically another 7-foot guard.
Totally, and I think that it goes the other way. I think that Giannis is one of the only people who can credibly guard KD. Good point. I think Giannis is just so much thicker than KD that the things that he's good at, kind of driving through people, using power, finishing at the rim, those are things that are harder for a guy who's slight to stop. Even if you're in the correct position, like Giannis will go through you. KD's game is a lot more finesse, and if his fadeaways aren't over the top of people, like I think his angle makes it hard to contest his shot anyway, but I think Giannis might be athletic enough to do it. And so I just think because of he won't have a speed advantage on KD, but his power advantage I think might be enough to get him open looks anyway. But I think that's the matchup we're going to see. The Bucks really have the ideal build that you would want to take on the Warriors. Hopefully we see that.
Yeah, it's possible. I think it's a little wishful thinking to think that is somehow going to defeat the complete package of the Golden State Warriors. But I think we're getting ahead of ourselves. So totally. Do we all have the Bucks over the Raptors? Because yes. I think we do. Okay, yeah, so
I do.
You don't?
I do. No.
Okay. So how many games? Because I'm thinking 6.
Same.
I think that
5 would be a little too few. I think 6 is the right number.
I just feel like that once Kawhi doesn't get the support that he needs, and also Marc Gasol doing Marc Gasol things, like that's a poor matchup, Marc Gasol against the Bucks. I just think he's too slow and too old to go up against them.
You know, we're saying 6 because I think we all want to take the kind of safer route here, but Toronto just had a slugfest against the 76ers, who, say what you will about their offense and stuff, they are a defensive powerhouse. Like, Joel Embiid is a load, and he just put some miles on Marc Gasol and worked all of them. They're going to be pretty tired And the Bucks, the one game they lost to the Celtics, it seemed like they were still in we're playing against Detroit mode. And then they got hit in the mouth and said, oh, right, it's the playoffs. And then they just annihilated Boston for 4 straight games.
So are you going to go for 5?
I'll do it. I'll say 5.
All
I'm going to say 3.
Ah, damn it.
Yeah. Doubling down.
It's lowest without going over, right?
Yep,
That's how this works.
rules.
Slightly off topic, but I think that it should be discussed. If the Raptors lose, I think the odds of Kawhi leaving are decent. If you're the Raptors, the look of trading your previous franchise player, DeMar DeRozan, for Kawhi, was it worth it if you lose in the Eastern Conference Finals?
I would... Pete, you go first.
Yeah. I mean, I don't love it, but that team had really sort of run its course. I mean, you had to shake up something, and this is the best deal you're really going to get. I think the tougher decision was really firing Dwayne Casey.
Yeah.
I would say that the Raptors did just about everything they could to retain Kawhi. They had just about as good of a season as they could have. They let him rest, like he played like half as many games as he would have if he played for another team that didn't give him as long of a leash to recover. And they played pretty darn well in the playoffs, and Kawhi got to do his thing, and everyone deferred to him. If this is his preferred way to play, you can't really ask for more than what the Raptors have given him. Now, he might leave anyway, but I think that they bought themselves a really good chance at having a top 5 player, and this was kind of their only shot at it, because I don't see anyone else on that roster. Pascal might get there in like 2-3 years if he continues on his current trajectory.
That's a big if.
I know, it's a big if, but he's got the tools, and he's really skilled, and athletically he's, on that kind of Giannis level if he fills out a little more. So that's the only guy who I see who has even the potential, right? Like Kyle's on the way down. Marc Gasol wasn't even on the team, but I don't see any guys on their bench who really wow me. Fred VanVleet ain't getting it done. So I think that you take that gamble, and if it doesn't work out, you did everything you could, and at the very least, you've brought kind of an all-star level of play out of Pascal, and now you've kind of got a path forward, even if you lose Kawhi.
Wow. I'm just looking at it. I'm looking at Game 7, and if you check the box score and look at how many players the Raptors did not play because of coach's decision so as that they could play their 7-man rotation, it's ridiculous. Fred VanVleet is the last person on the bench. Like, only 2 players on the bench played. Everyone else played basically max minutes. They're going to be tired. They're going to be so tired.
Yeah, so I think that Game 1, at least, the Bucks should have a pretty good advantage because of that. But we'll see if it continues.
Does anybody know?
Offhand? I think that one's tomorrow.
Yeah, that's tomorrow.
It's Tuesday. Well, when we're recording this, I think it's Tuesday.
That is tough.
Like, they just...
No, Wednesday.
Oh, it's Wednesday?
It's Wednesday.
Are both games on Wednesday?
No, wait, let me check. No, Portland is going to be Tuesday. Portland versus Golden State.
Okay.
Ooh, that is bad for Portland.
So that's a good transition. We've got Portland versus Golden State. Does anyone have Portland taking them past?
Whoa. Time out.
Oh, go ahead.
Can we talk about the Rockets-Warriors series?
Sure. It was a good series. The Rockets gave them as good of a punch as they could. KD going... Good? I mean, I think so.
Define good.
Yeah.
They played 5 very competitive... All the games were very competitive, actually. There was not a single blowout among any of them.
Let me stop asking leading questions. I'll just get to what I mean. Was it an entertaining series?
It was probably one of the biggest disappointments of the year.
Well, I would say if you really like James Harden ISOs and Steph Curry exploding in the fourth quarter, yes.
And just general sort of ref baiting and squabbling over officiating.
Yes.
Like the Rockets released a report on their complaints about last year's series.
Yeah, that wasn't a good look.
That was some petty nonsense.
Not a good look.
I'm glad you mentioned it as Gino knows, from time to time, I consult basketball Twitter to find, what are the worst hot takes I can find on basketball Twitter?
There are
So
a lot.
I found one. And
he
as
shares
Gino,
them all with me.
And as Gino can attest,
Yep.
the hot takes I find are bad.
They are always
And
bad.
Pete,
As they usually are.
you're going to find one, probably one of the worst I've ever seen when he reads this email. So I found someone who's responding to ESPN's article, Houston has no excuses. So this is, I'm not actually going to read their account, but it is a Houston Rockets logo. It's the old Rockets logo, which I find weird because I thought that logo
Good
was
logo,
bad.
though.
I never liked that logo.
I
It's
liked it.
cartoony.
I love the cartoony rocket.
All right.
Bring it back. Go ahead.
What are you talking about? Houston has tons of excuses. Number 1, Harden's eye injury. The man basically played like a cyclops for half of Game 7. That's not true at all.
No.
Also, that's not game. Also, there wasn't a 7th game.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I read that wrong. Number 2, the refs didn't give Harden 20-plus free throw attempts.
Should they have?
Some of the games.
Okay, here's the best one. Harden's 6 turnovers were supposed to be assists. Harden doesn't do turnovers. That's what's wrong.
Well, that was a parody account. I'm pretty sure.
The Warriors
Not
cheated.
accurate, though.
The Warriors cheated by moving the ball. This should be illegal. How you gonna pass the ball to an open team member, making it harder to defend? James Harden doesn't cheat by passing the ball. He just dribbles the clock out and then jump into the defender, hoping for a call. That's how the NBA is supposed to be played.
Again, accurate. An accurate description of what's going on.
I don't understand. I get why people don't like watching the Rockets play. It's a very specific style. It's ISO heavy. But didn't people revere Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan, and they pounded the rock and just demanded it all the time and did ISO bullshit constantly? Wasn't this basically the Cavalier strategy when Kyrie was down and Kevin Love was down, and it was just pound the ball into LeBron and just play grind it out like football style of basketball? Haven't we just agreed that that's one of the best ways to attack the Warriors? Just play ISO heavy so that their switching defense doesn't get involved.
Gino, you're starting to sound like Russell Westbrook and Paul George. The point is it didn't work, and it has not worked 4 out of 5 times.
Well, last time they had them in Game 7 down 10 at halftime. Like, they were closest that any team has ever come to beating the Warriors.
And then they got gassed, and then they ran out of steam.
Yeah, but they played the best team ever made.
The type of basketball that they're running is unsustainable, is the problem. You can't sustain it. You cannot play ISOs for 40-plus minutes, especially if you have Chris Paul with his knees. Like,
yes.
This isn't working.
Chris Paul will not get it done.
Paul will not get it done. Maybe Lob City Chris Paul, but, man, I gotta say, it's a damn shame that Chris Paul will never get his ring. I think this was his last good chance to get a ring.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, if you're the Rockets, what moves do you have left?
That's the thing, is I don't think they have any options, because you're going to be paying 2 more years of Chris Paul for $44 million. You can't trade Harden because he is the person he's your franchise player.
He's the reason your team exists.
And they're kind of stuck in the same way. They're stuck in the, albeit when I say this, I want to concede that the Houston Rockets are far more skilled, but they're in a similar situation as the Oklahoma City Thunder, wherein the player that defines your offense and defines what you need to build around isn't giving a lot of wiggle room here. And your only option is to possibly look at Clint Capella, but are you really going to get a lot of value out of him that changes it so is that you can deal with, the bigger contenders in this Western Conference?
The big X factor is if the Warriors lose KD and, I don't know, they have an injury or anything like that, or if they just take a sizable step back because KD's not there to take over the offense when Steph and everyone else are getting a little cute.
But then you're playing with a Chris Paul that has an extra year under his belt, and you cannot beat Father Time.
Oh, I don't know. I'm just saying, is the difference between the Warriors without KD in a year maybe enough to where this Rockets team, if they are able to add someone or rejigger a little bit, can't just grind it out and win a couple more coin tosses?
You're competing against the other rising teams in the Western Conference because it's already a bloodbath. You're dealing with Dame and CJ just completely on fire. You're dealing with a reinvigorated Denver Nuggets team. The Jazz even have potential.
Do they, though?
Yeah, maybe. And then if LA is able to sign someone, they could possibly be a team.
Yeah, LA has 2 head coaches now. They are going to go down in flames next year. They're fucked.
2 coaches who hate each other.
Yeah, they're screwed. And I 100% in lumping this all at LeBron's feet.
Look, it's a team of rivals. How could it go wrong?
And the Sacramento Kings might be good. They might be able to take the 8th seed this year.
Yeah, they might. I'd do that.
I just think that if you're the Rockets, if the Warriors take a step back, you're at least in the conversation of teams that can take us.
I think Denver, Portland are going to take bigger steps forward, though.
Yeah, but that's the whole point is to be in those games, right, and have a shot. And I think that the Rockets, even with their core, even with their flaws, as currently assembled, will be in the conversation until James Harden starts declining. And so I mean, but
can't blow it up. Would he kill them to at least design a few plays that are natural looks for Harden to get? Like, how about a couple backdoor plays? How about a couple more backdoor plays? You know,
they have plays,
but they're not running them when they start to get in. You can't like.
I
will admit.
But they
I will admit the hero ball they do play when the cards are down, the hero ball they do play is just amazing. Like what people forget is that the last 30 seconds, like everyone on the Houston Rockets was shooting like 70 to 80% on threes. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. So we need to discuss the actual Portland Warriors series.
Yeah.
I think that does anyone think that Portland gets a game?
I think, I'd give it 5. I mean, you have 2 players as offensively talented as Dame and CJ. If they heat up at the same time, they could eke one out in Portland.
ZP, do you think they get a game?
I'm going to say 5. No more, no less than 5. And I really feel bad about 5.
I'm going to say 4. I think that this is a Warrior sweep. I think that it was very cute. Like, I really like what Portland's been doing. They were lucky to get the teams that they got in the states they were in, and now they are less of a team than they were at the beginning of the playoffs. They've lost Rodney Hood. Enes Kanter just got mauled for 7 games.
As the Warriors.
Yeah,
maybe more.
I think more hurt with essential players. Like Yusuf Nurkic hasn't even been in the playoffs with them, and now the players that they've got in his place are all generally banged up. So going up against the Warriors, even if it's only a 6-deep Warriors roster, I think that you've still got a lot of problems. Iggy's going to put the clamps on one of the guards. Give him the clamps. And then Clay will put the clamps on the other person. And then CJ and Dame are both bad defenders for the most part. So I just don't see a path forward. Enes Kanter is going to... Is he going to play? Like, can he play?
It's pretty painful to watch him play. I mean,
who else is going to?
Zach Collins.
But he's not... I like Zach Collins. I think that he's shaping up, but he seriously needs to put more pounds on.
He's totally, but you can't... Enes Kanter just can't guard the pick and roll. Like, he got annihilated the last time he played against the Warriors to the point where Billy Donovan was caught on camera saying, "Can't play Kanter."
Yeah, that was funny.
Yeah, that was the last time they played in the playoffs. Like, I don't know. He didn't get quicker on his feet. Like, he was able to bang because the last 2 series they played, he had Steven Adams to go against, and then he had Jokic. Like, there was a real reason to have this big, burly guy who has slow foot speed and, bad shot blocking instincts. But now, against the Warriors, they're going to go fucking 5 out, and there's going to be nowhere for him to hide. and they're going to find him every play. So then you put Zach Collins in, and Zach Collins was fouling like crazy. I just don't see a path for them to even get a game outside of shooting a ludicrous percentage.
And if Boogie returns, Cantor and Collins are doomed. They are doomed.
Well, at least if Boogie returns, Cantor has a reason to be on the court. Right?
But even with one leg, he's going to hobble around Cantor.
Yeah, but at least then you've got a big body for Cantor to ostensibly guard.
I would almost say, no matter what, play game 1 and game 2 without Boogie and see if your smaller players can just run circles around Cantor, and then just tell Boogie to get healthier.
Just play him out of the game. If your biggest guy on the court is Draymond, what is Cantor even doing? Like, what's Zach Collins doing?
So Cantor is a very good offensive rebounder.
Yes. He is, and that he would do well.
Yes. Wait, I mean, like, if you're going to win, you're going to need to take more shots than them. You're not going to make more shots than them.
Can we talk about the time when Portland was playing up against Denver and they completely forgot how to get a defensive rebound? Do you remember game 2? Was that game 2? Yeah, I think that was game 2. Just all these teams, other than the Warriors, they were very flawed, but I didn't want to see Jokic get sacrificed to the basketball gods for our sins, and I don't want to see CJ and Dame get sacrificed to the basketball gods because it's not fair, and this is bad for basketball, and I will continue to harp on and repeat this soundbite that this is bad for basketball. And this is why I'm disappointed. The Rockets should have done their job so as that we could have all lived in a happier society.
Well,
and I just want to say, it's just like, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but it's like I'm totally down with you two guys. Let's bring communism to basketball. Let's share the equality. This is killing the sport. Let's share the happiness.
I actually think a free market solution is the better one here. If we just get rid of the salary cap and max contract.
I knew you were going to say that.
Because again, that's a way for management to keep labor down.
Let's just get more expansion teams. Let's dilute this talent pool. What cities don't have it? Las Vegas, you get a team. Let's dilute this talent pool. Let's ruin this product.
So long as Seattle doesn't get one.
I don't know. I kind of like how whenever OKC loses a game, you'll just see the same Seattle Supersonics logos on Twitter talking about, see, we cursed you. We cursed you. Like, no, you didn't curse them.
Well, I've still got my Kevin Durant Seattle Supersonics jersey.
There you go.
And it'll be appropriate because when he comes to New York, it's like, wow. It's like I knew.
You really okay? I guess that's a good topic. Like, where do you foresee KD going? Are you down with New York at this point?
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he went to New York or Brooklyn or someplace to be
I would love to see him go to Brooklyn. Oh man,
have some salad days.
I would love to see KD playing the East.
Yeah, go East. It's easier there. But I think wherever he goes, unless he joins one of the teams that's kind of already in the playoffs, I think that he'll be good enough to get your team to the playoffs. But if you don't have one or two more complementary pieces, he's not good enough to take you to the championship by himself. So I think he's going to find that he's going to miss playing with maybe one of the smartest teams ever assembled.
And hence why I was so disappointed with the Rocket series, because we're looking at a Warriors dynasty possibly even if KD leaves.
Yep.
They played a hurt, injured, messed up, 3 years older version of their 2016 roster, and they won.
Yep. Steph and Clay and Draymond are really
and they
fucking
played
good.
better. They played better.
Yeah. They do that every time KD gets hurt. They lost like 2 games with KD out. Is it weird?
I mean, like, in a vacuum, yeah. Like the fact that you can take out, top 3 player in the NBA and suddenly get better. It's weird.
Yeah, there's only so many shots, and KD doesn't play in the flow offense as well as the other guys do.
I mean, he's Western Conference Jimmy Butler.
Kind of. I mean, in a perfect world, he would be Harrison Barnes with just a 40% shooting percentage. But
He wouldn't
he's
be
too
such
good
a
for
fool
that.
all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, weirdly enough, I think the Warriors would be better if he was just parked in the corners and occasionally cutting to the rim instead of getting plays run for him. Because actually, the Steph Draymond pick and roll is kind of one of the best things you can do in basketball.
The one thing I do want to say, and I don't understand how teams continue to let this happen, but Draymond's screens are just the most predictable shit. Like, he does the same thing over and over again, and yet he fools and dupes other teams into falling for that stuff.
I mean, he doesn't actually do the same thing over and over again.
His screens are not. And then, you know, it's like Iggy has to pump fake every single three he takes. It's like...
I don't think he actually wants to shoot.
He doesn't most of the time.
Yeah,
he would prefer if they bit and then he got to do stuff.
He makes the shots that he needs to make.
He's another guy who's been basically an all-star for the last, 4 years, and he can't even make, a six-man of the year vote. They're an absurd team. I can't wait to see them play the Bucks in the finals.
For anyone who is bored at the possibility of the Golden State Warriors winning yet another championship, I welcome you to join me in finding what I think is probably the most entertaining thing in the NBA, and it's not even about the playoffs. Following the shit show that is the LA Lakers. Join me. This misery train has been probably the funniest thing I've ever seen my entire life.
It's great.
It's amazing. It's just the best.
Well,
I love it. I love just this complete catastrophe. It's the best.
No, you know what the real best is, CP?
What?
And thank you for bringing this to my attention. The Big Three has expanded.
Oh, that's right. Oh, Pete.
Yes.
So,
Pete.
the Big Three had a draft.
They've expanded.
And guess who one of the players they announced that they've just recently drafted into the Big Three?
Is it somebody obvious?
It is very obvious.
You're just going to have to tell me. I don't want to guess.
Lamar Odom.
Lamar Odom?
They have signed
Is
Lamar
he
Odom.
healthy? Is he alive?
He looks like a zombie if that's what you're asking.
Good. I'm glad that he's capable of this. He had a rough go of it for a while.
You know another player who's now in the Big Three?
Oh, and guess who's on the same team as him, Pete?
Tell me more. I'm dialed in now.
Greg Oden.
Greg fucking Oden.
Greg Oden and Lamar Odom are on the same team.
There was talk of weird rumblings of a Greg Oden comeback a while ago.
Well, he's going to the Big Three to do that.
My God.
You know who else is in the Big Three? Josh Smith.
Wow. What is the Big Three doing?
Okay,
Gilbert Arenas.
Gilbert Arenas signed with them?
No. Lamar Odom is not on the same team with Greg Oden.
Oh,
He's on the
but
same team with Gilbert Arenas, Perry Jones III, and Royce White.
Oh, man.
Royce White.
Wow.
Yeah, okay, so Pete, here are the Big Three's original founding teams. The Three-Headed Monsters, Three's Company, the Ball Hogs, the Ghost Ballers, the Killer Threes, Power, Tri-State, Trilogy. But they've added, I believe, 4 new teams?
4 new teams.
The Aliens.
The Aliens who have
that's not a 3.
Shannon Brown, Greg Oden, Brandon Rush, and their coach is Nate Archibald.
Nate Archibald. Wow. Okay. Are we just going to acknowledge now that the Big Three is the best basketball league in the world?
I think happy to acknowledge that.
We have to acknowledge.
Yeah.
Here's another team, Bivouac.
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 As in what people do on mountains when they don't have tents?
As in an ant mound.
So their team, Bivouac, is Josh Smith.
No, but can we acknowledge their logo is 3 ants holding up a ball?
Yep.
I like that. That's quality.
So,
that's good.
Bivouac is led by Josh Smith. He's the captain. Then Anthony Morrow, Will Bynum, a whole lot of nothing, and then Dion Glover.
No, Sean Williams. Do you remember Sean Williams?
No, I don't.
He had a cup of coffee with the Knicks.
Oh, that's right. Then C.J. Leslie and their coach is Reggie Theus.
Another new team, the Enemies, starring Gilbert Arenas, Perry Jones III, co-captain, with Lamar Odom. Then
Royce White,
Royce
Craig
White,
Smith,
Craig
and Frank
Smith.
Robinson.
Yep, with Coach Rick Mahorn.
Rick Mahorn.
Oh my God! And then the final expansion team, the Triplets. Oh man!
Sorry.
Yo!
I'm looking at this too.
I didn't look at who were on the Triplets.
Oh
I wish this had been my good. Sorry, I just want to jump in. I'm looking at Royce White's Wikipedia page, and here's the first line. It doesn't even start with basketball. Royce Alexander White is an American mixed martial artist and professional basketball player.
Wow.
He's legit.
So,
Royce White
Gino,
should be in the
are you
NBA.
looking at triplets?
I am. Yo,
Okay,
Pete.
you read it out.
Pete, our favorite basketball player. Who is it?
We have the same favorite basketball
We have the
player?
same favorite basketball player. We both agree. Joseph Johnson.
Why is that
Followed
my
by
favorite basketball player?
So
Joe Johnson.
followed by Al Jefferson.
Al Jefferson.
Gennaro Pardo.
That's a legit squad. That's the best one sounding so far.
No, you know, the thing is, these guys are washed NBA players. I think Royce White is like, he should be in the NBA right now, and if he didn't have mental health troubles that put like a lot of NBA GMs off of him, I think he'd be in the NBA right now. And
I
from
agree
watching,
with you as a talent. I think that's an unfair assessment of why Royce White isn't in the NBA.
he led some Canadian team to a championship by just like hauling them on his back.
No, but I'm saying this, like, it's definitely related to his mental illness, but the suggestion that it's all, like, Royce White has a lot to do with why Royce White isn't in the NBA.
Yeah, and he also can be a prickly person to work with.
Okay, that's all I wanted to point out.
Yes, it's not just that.
Yes.
But I think that also
So
we accommodate a lot of players who
Yeah.
have prickly personalities, but the NBA decided they did not want to accommodate him.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So I want to talk about one of the teams that was here that had a losing season, and so they decided to go big during the draft and completely
Wait.
rebuild their team.
The coach of the Triplets is Lisa Leslie, WNBA
Nice.
Okay.
All-Star. Go
So
ahead.
let's talk about Tri-State.
Oh, please.
Tri-State roster. Their captain is Jermaine O'Neal. Their
Of course.
co-captain is Amari Stoudemire.
What?
Yo, Amari's hair looks like...
Does he have knees?
You need to look at Amari Stoudemire's hair in this picture for the Big Three.
The co-captain is Nate Robinson.
His hair looks like it was photoshopped on.
Oh, and then one of their backup players is Bonzi Wells. And Pete, you'll get a good kick out of this. The coach of Tri-State is Dr. J.
Really?
Yes.
Why is that? Dr. J is a far too dignified individual to participate in anything remotely related.
Are you suggesting that Brian Scalabrine, as a coach, should not be in the Big Three? Are you saying that he's not the star power?
I'm suggesting Brian Scalabrine shouldn't be allowed to do anything. He should be locked in a basement somewhere.
I want to appreciate that the Big Three, their color commentator is Michael Rappaport.
Yeah, he's really good.
He's very good at his job, and it makes
at this specific job.
It makes me wish that there was uncensored commentary for NBA games, because he lets a couple slide during their live streams, and it's just amazing.
He's just awful too, though.
Yeah, but
like as an individual.
But he's the right type of awful for this.
I'd probably give you that. Who's Brian Scalabrine but on the Spurs?
Are you implying there's a player who's like Brian? Oh, you mean the Red Rocket? Is that who you mean? Their former
Gary Payton is a coach. What is he doing here?
Yeah, there's a player who I confuse with Brian Scalabrine, but he played for the Spurs.
What was his name? His nickname was the Red Rocket.
I'll look that
But Larry Sanders is in this league.
Matt Bonner. There we go. Yes.
Matt Bonner.
That is, him and Brian Scalabrine are the same person as far as I'm concerned.
Archibald.
Larry Sanders is in this league.
Larry Sanders? God, he was like a defensive player of the year for a while.
Mario
Deshaun Stevenson.
Chalmers.
I think we just need to. Like,
oh shit! Brian Scalabrine is not a. He's not a coach.
He's a player.
Actually, he's a captain.
Yeah.
What?
On the worst team in the league. Because he's he's one of their best players. It's a problem for them.
Do you remember when Larry Sanders was a monster?
I do. He should still be in the NBA.
I don't know if I agree with that.
I think he would. I think he could do what Clint
Mike
Capella
Bibby
does.
is still in the league with his ripped up. Oh my God, Mike Bibby is with Ricky Davis and Carlos Boozer.
Yo, Eddie Curry's in the league.
I'm telling you, this is the best basketball league in the world now.
I just need to emphasize that in the Killer Threes pictures, Steven Jackson is wearing sunglasses.
Jackson's got stunner shades. Oh no, wait, they're just shades.
They're just shades. We
Steven
need to
Jackson,
go to one of
Josh
these
Powell.
and then
Wow.
report back.
Yeah, we got to watch a game.
Okay, that we've done enough discussing of the big three. I just felt we needed to acknowledge that this was a thing, that it continues to exist. It's still a threat. Chris Anderson is still in the...
Kenyon Martin is a coach.
I mean, if the games are half as entertaining as just reading the rosters, it's
They are.
incredible.
I've seen a few of them, and let me tell you, Amari Stoudemire, his defense is as good as his hair is currently.
Then
If you
he's
thought
the greatest defender in the history of the league.
If you thought he couldn't stop people when there were 5 people on the court, it's way harder when there's only 3. Fuck, Jason Terry's in here now?
Yep. Yes, he is. Someone drafted Jason Terry. Thank you very much.
They couldn't even bother to give Carlos Arroyo any... I love how some of these players just don't have a hometown, NBA season, or a height listing. It's just their name. Carlos Arroyo was in the NBA for like 3 seasons or 4 seasons.
Oh, man.
I really like how lazy the Ghost Baller's name is.
they're-
It's like, yeah, we're ballers, but we're ghosts, I guess. Whatever.
But their logo's so good.
It is. That is actually a great logo.
And Mike Bibby's on that team.
Yeah, you're right. This is the best thing that I found out.
Where's it?
Shredded up Mike Bibby.
I gotta see Ghost Baller jerseys.
Oh,
I've
you're
looked
right.
into them.
Have you thought about buying the jerseys?
For the Ghost Ballers? Look at
Yeah.
that fucking thing. The problem is that the only one they have was Mike Bibby, and I'm not wearing a fucking Mike Bibby jersey.
I'll wear that Mike Bibby shirt.
Those are great colors too, both of them, the purple and the gray. I would rock that
Yeah.
gray uni.
We need to get a custom Ghost Ballers jersey and go to a local tournament.
100%.
Oh, I guess Carlos Boozer's on. Carlos Boozer's less... I remember Mike Bibby having some sort of controversy about him.
Like about the massive amount of steroids he's clearly on now.
Doing things that weren't great. Whereas
Oh,
Carlos
that's right.
Boozer's never hurt anyone but himself.
I mean, I'm not one to talk. My team's also a complete shit show.
They list a White Mamba youth jersey for the Ball Hogs.
White Mamba.
What? Oh, yeah, that's right. That's Brian Scalabrine.
But on the back, it's instead
It
of
says
Scalabrine,
W Mamba.
it says W Mamba. Okay, this is great. All right, thank you once
That's
again
nice.
for discussing the NBA and NBA affiliated things. Thank you, Pete.
Yeah, a pleasure. I wish we could have spent more time on the big three.
Yeah, we need to make a Big 3 episode where we
Yeah.
each go out of our way to watch a game.
For our NBA Finals podcast.
We're not going
we'll
to cover
do,
the NBA Finals. We're going
we'll
to
do the-
cover the Big 3, damn it.
Yeah, we'll do the NBA Finals, and then we'll each do a scouting report on a different Big 3 team. And thank you, ZP.
One of the scores for this was 50-35.
That's awesome.
50-28.
Thank you, listeners. Because 50, you get to 50.
I
50's
know,
the
but
final
like
score.
this is a weird thing.
It's
I
so
want to know
good.
more. I want to
They
know
have a
more.
4-point line. It's so good. Okay, thank you, listeners. And remember, if you want to get in touch with us, if you want to ask questions about the Big Three or any other relevant question, you can do so at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com, or deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com, which is our main way of finding you. Thank you once again. Until next time, peace!